So today I've got Calm Fancy, and we're going to talk about a couple subjects. So I haven't posted in a while because of my landlord issues, and what happened was I got told a while back that, quoting my landlord, that my apartment, because of all the lights in for my reptiles and the actual power strips that go with it, that it was a fire hazard. That oh well, it's a fire hazard. You have to remove all this. The apartments are made for that. It's like, well, your apartment's that shitty? Like, really? So, what ended up happening, a few weeks, it was back in December sometime, I was actually starting to work on a new editing program. And so then all my power went off all of a sudden. I had just one strip of lights in here, but my overhead lights that actually in here worked. And it's like, I don't understand what happened. This is weird. Like, the lights shouldn't burn things up. So I tried calling my landlord, couldn't get a hold of him. Okay, can't. So that was a Sunday. So Monday I finally got a hold of him. All of a sudden, he's telling me, oh, well, all your lights and everything, they burned up the wiring. They burned the wiring up. No? Is your apartments that bad that they would burn up the wiring? I lived in a terrible house before. I have an associate's in physics. I get how electricity works. No true electrician, has not gone through basic physics to figure out electrical systems. Yeah, it's garbage. And it's like, I've lived in a terrible house, and all of a sudden, now, my lights are causing problems. If you do a space heater, space heaters are a lot of juice on the circuit. They really are. You have to struggle with that if you have to use space heaters. But lights themselves are not, and I knew that. So, I'm sorry, buddy. So that Monday I did get a hold of him, and he, oh yeah. So yeah, all the stuff that you're doing now, this is burning up the wiring. Your stuff is just corroded everything. So, we can't bring an electrician in till you have everything out of the apartment. Okay, where am I supposed to go? Because I know it's not my stuff. So if the apartment's so bad that the electric is, well, we've had all the wiring that it's not the electric. That's not it. But where am I supposed to go? Where am I supposed to take everything? This was his answer. Yeah, that was bullshit. You don't talk to people like that. You don't treat people like that. Well, if the wiring's tore up, you're going to have to pay for it all. Okay, it's not my crap. So that tore up the wiring, your wiring's that bad, if that's what it is. So 3 days, I had to rig stuff up so my animals didn't get to there. Because in Missouri, the law is 3 days, 65 below, you're free of moving. With no penalties, nothing. It's the landlord's fault. They should have fixed things. So no. So Wednesday, he brought in a brand new maintenance person. The maintenance person was coming to my apartment to fix an old outlet in the kitchen that they've never fixed since I've gotten here. And so, you can't run around like you normally do, buddy. He usually gets to run around, but I don't have a leash on him, so you can't do that. So we're going to lean back a little bit here. So, this guy comes in to check the outlet to figure out to replace it. And I know it's the wiring for that outlet because it's attached to other outlets that actually work. So he starts checking the outlets, the wiring. Goes, none of your wires are burned up. No, duh. I knew that. So he goes and checks the breaker box. Wiring's fine. The breaker box is fine. So he goes into the bathroom. The GSI outlet got tripped. Oh, well, crap. The whole thing, the whole apartment goes out, and it's a safety feature, which makes sense. But I can't believe the landlord didn't think of that, because I didn't know about it at the time, but it makes sense. So if you start messing with the heater, and the electric isn't shut off, it shuts it off through that outlet, which is complete safety. It's a very positive thing to do. But it really pissed me off. And this new maintenance guy was he was a electrician for 30 years. So what ended up happening was he pulled out some equipment to check the amps. And on my 2-story enclosure, that's 4 80-watt bulbs, halogens, in fixtures above, 2 UVB 3-foot long with 2 grow lights in there. I bet you can't believe how many amps it actually took. 4. The outlet's rated for 15. But I burned everything up in the apartment. Oh my God! It was absolutely ridiculous. You can see his little tail here. He's just waiting. He's trying to figure out where to go next to do something here. So we'll talk about that some other time. So, I am going to explain how lighting works in this hobby for now. There's things going on all the time with this that are really interesting. So, a UVB range is between 280 nanometers and 315. A UVA range is 320 nanometers to 400 nanometers. And we can see here that we're just barely getting UVA in our grow light. Well, UVA helps us and the animals regulate D3. Maybe not make D3, but regulate it, which is important. So on the screen is a website for Arcadia. You can actually put in whatever animal you want and it'll give you what it suggests. But there's also other things here that actually show you if you get a reptile sunlight, what range it should be. Now, understanding your Ferguson index. In Ferguson index, on a light bulb, you'll actually see layers. Okay, this is how strong this is between these inches, between these centimeters, these millimeters, and they'll will be as it goes down. So, this actually shows you where you should be with certain things. And I often use a 10 36-inch, a UVB 10 Reptile Sun, and it's saying between 18 and 36, or the other one that says 12 to 24 here. I put it at 12. Okay? And I'm going to explain why I do what I do. Every lighting that I have, there's a point to it. And I'll go through and explain why everything is. But I always also use a grow light. And as we can see here, the spectrum are above UVB. So this is not producing any UVB or any actual UVA. And you can see where it says 4 to 6 inches high. I've got mine about 8 above the garden, but I'll show you. And I use all of that because any animal that actually uses UVB will benefit from a bigger spectrum. Now, none of this compares to the sun, but yet adding that. And I'll show you. The Arcadia website is also really good. This graph shows shadow, how the shadow should be in your enclosures, of which I'm not taking as 100%, but it gives you an idea where to start, where to kind of look at. Decors and stuff are super important. We don't hold that enough when it comes to lighting, how important that is. Now, I know I'm going to get some feedback on this, where people are going to be like, oh, well, you know, your setup's wrong, your lighting is wrong, blah, 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 because it doesn't match even a lot of the Facebook graphs. Now, I'm going to explain a lot of things in here that you do need to know that are important, like distance. But the thing is that we need to explore more. If you're not giving them an outside enclosure that they would have a natural range of, which is ridiculous for captive species. So therefore, you're crapping yourself out there, telling me that I'm wrong. I have a reason for everything I do. That's one thing everybody needs to think about. Think about the reasoning. As long as yours can get to the proper distance and get away from it, there has to be reasoning. Now, some people are like, well, you know, you're talking about advanced keeping, so, you know, you need an absolute for new keepers. Well, most people in this world want absolutes. That's not how this works. You don't have to have a grow light, but it does benefit them, and you will see a change in their behavior once you add it. So experimenting is great, especially if you're a new keeper, because it puts you in the driver's seat and it makes you explore more, makes you put more thought into things, and it makes it more enjoyable, and you'll actually do more experimentation, and you can see what works and doesn't work for your individual animal. And this is important, and it'll make you happier with this hobby. With the life of your animal will be happier, because they're experiencing different things, and you'll be able to figure out what really makes them happy, what makes them more motivated, what moves them more to one side or the other. This would be wonderful things to do. So I do encourage experimentation with lights, even for new keepers. But as long as you have a reasoning and make slow changes and just watch benefits, experimentation's okay. And anybody telling you that I'm wrong is full of crap. Just full of it. This is pitches. We can see we have two 80 watts halogens in here. And so she has about 95 right now, but it's usually 91. And her basking platforms here are over 100. Now her UVB light is in the back, so all the space up front is not really getting UVB, but she has to climb, because from the tips here it's about 12. So this is within under 12. But this means as she eats, she'll come over here and bask to get the temperature properly to actually achieve her digestion. And then she will regulate her temperature while still getting the proper UVB as she moves down. And since I have this grow light, and this grow light is about 8 inches to 10 here, so it's not perfect. It's their little garden. I'm still working on stuff in here now. I need to plant some white clover. But this, they will sit right there where the UVB and the grow light meet. And Hydra does the same thing, because this is the closest they can get to actual sun. And so having these things at the right height matters, because then they come down here, and this is where Pitch usually hides, underneath here, so she can get away from the UVB whenever she likes. So this makes it to where she actually moves. So she actually gets exercise by climbing and coming down. I can't tell you how many times I see a Hydra actually sitting here on this basking rock over here that's not really a basking rock, it's just a rock to get in and out. So they have to climb in and out of the tote to get to the garden, to get to the light. So this is good. Like, this makes them exercise to get to what they want. And I have noticed in every single animal I have, they do this. To get to the grow light and the UVB, if you separate them, and you separate them out from the heat source, from your basking platform, you have a little separation, and you actually make them climb to get to the UVB, they will climb. This means they will constantly be exercising. This is a positive to keep them healthy. We look at hydras, it's the same thing. But you see how that's lower? So that plant is still within the range. So if he climbs on top of it, he's not overdoing himself. He's actually still proper. And so understanding your decor and where your decor lies and how your animals will climb on them is super important. I said this in my quarantine video. This is a UVB that is actually used from my bearded dragons, because the emerald green tree skinks do not need as much UVB. And this can be determined by the Ferguson zones. So the other light is a grow light. So they have basking, UVB, and grow. And they have to climb to get there, and they love to climb. So that's always a positive thing here. And they do. Lucky in his older enclosure, which is sitting right here, when I had the lights separated out, UVB, and then basking lights between them, he would literally move back and forth between the two. Here's the deal about the UVB here. Since it's an old lamp from my bearded dragons, it is not full. And when you put them on top of screens, you lower by 30% or more down. So what actually happening is you're looking at 12 to 18 inches is what we said earlier. So let's lower that to half. So you're wanting around 8 inches at least. And that means that is not actually getting the full level 3 like a bearded dragon would. That is getting more like level 1 or 2. And that is fine for an emerald green tree skink. That is perfect. So then I had their setups were about 8 inches away from the light. And that's perfect. So understanding that is very important for lighting. So this is my Peter Banded skinks. This is the last month that they should be in here, or without loose substrate, because the parasites should be done now. The eggs have all probably hatched. So we've got 2 UVB lights in here. And so this temperature in this enclosure gets over 100 degrees because of where they are, but they bury themselves under the newspaper and this actually allows them to be better. Like, this is good for them because it's much cooler under there. So in physics, the laws of physics state that a photon, two photons can actually have an angle that actually creates zero light, or they can have an angle that creates 4 times the amount of light that it would, either one of them could produce on their own. So therefore, you have 0, you have 1, you have 2, and you have 4 times the amount of light in any part of this. So just one of these bulbs would not have made it. They're both tin UVB, and this would not have made it to the ground. Now, these guys don't really need too much UVB, but adding them both together, you get 2 to 3 times the amount of UVB, the amount of light that they would have either lamp by themselves. And it will vary from point to point, from time to time, because photons are constantly moving. So therefore, there is no way to tell for sure at any given time. But it should be between 2 and 3 times the amount either one of those lamps can do by themselves, because there is 2 together. Think of safety, like, subscribe, and we'll see you later.